There we go. So today's class is a shoulder class. It should be quite a nice one, actually. There's a few bits in there to um, help to strengthen the shoulders, but mostly we're going to be thinking about release and just kind of exploring the different movements of the shoulder, elbow, and wrist, and then thinking about the rib cage in relation to that as well. So to start off with, get yourselves lying down, nice and comfortable on your back. And if you have your knees bent, that's probably more comfortable, just to allow the pelvis to rest in neutral. And then we can kind of let the lower body take care of itself, allowing us to focus on the upper body. So rest your arms down by your sides. And we'll take a moment here just to see where we're at as a starting point. So there's two things I want you to notice with your shoulders. First of all, how far away are the tips of your shoulders from the mat? So quite often the activities that we do day to day encourage the shoulders to roll forward and kind of close the chest. And so if that's the case for you, see if you can just let go of a bit of tension to let the shoulders kind of melt back towards the mat behind you. Give that a go a couple of times, so letting the shoulders kind of curl forward a little bit and then releasing. And just familiarizing yourself with that sort of back and forward movement. You might feel your pecs engaging and then letting go. And then I want you to let go as much as you can. And we'll think about the up and down movement of the shoulders as well. So see if you can shrug your shoulders. You'll feel your shoulder blades sliding up on your back. And then if you reach your fingertips down towards your heels, you're going to feel the shoulders pull away from your ears. Try that a few times, up and down. And this is something I'm going to keep coming back to. I'm going to be a bit of a broken record today because the shoulders, for some of us, will shrug the moment we stop thinking about them. So we're going to keep checking and keep making sure the shoulders stay away from the ears. Let's do that now, bringing them down, and again, relaxing the shoulders back to the mat. We're then going to lift one arm, hand above your shoulder, and flex the wrist. So you've got the palm of your hand facing the ceiling. And if you had closed your eyes, open them now just to have a look at the back of your hand and see if you can straighten out your fingers and begin perhaps to feel a little bit of a stretch in the hand, arm, and maybe even into the shoulder as well. You're then going to push your palm up towards the ceiling. So you can allow the shoulder to come away from the mat a little. The rest of the body stays heavy, just pushing that palm up as though you are trying to hold up the ceiling just with the power of that one hand. Take a breath in. And then keeping the arm lifted, just allow your shoulder to come back to the mat. Let's do that again, pushing the palm up towards the ceiling. Don't worry if this feels odd, it can kind of stretch the nerves a little bit. But if it's really uncomfortable, then just relax your hand. Coming back down. We're going to do one more, but we're going to have the shoulder away from the ear this time. So pull that shoulder down as far as it will go. And now push the palm up towards the ceiling. And see if you could pull those fingernails down towards your nose, really pushing up through the heel of the hand. Relax your neck. And then relax the shoulder down and relax the arm all the way down. And feel free to do a few little wiggles with the fingers or grabbing motions with the hands just to loosen things off a little bit again on that side. And then we'll move over to the other side. So other arm lifts up, palm faces the ceiling, and spreading those fingers, stretching them long, pushing the palm up towards the ceiling. Big breath in here. And then let the shoulder come back down. 2 more times. Pushing up, pushing the ceiling away. And relax. And then final one, so just thinking about that shoulder shrug, bring the shoulder down. Imagine you're tucking your shoulder blade into your back pocket. And then again, push the palm up. And release it back down. And you can come all the way down this time. And again, do any movements with the wrists or fingers that just help you to recover a little bit. You can even give your shoulders a little wiggle if you need to. We're then going to do a similar movement, but with the arms out to the sides this time. So take your arms out to the left and right, and have your palms facing away from you. So you're now going to imagine you're kind of trying to push your palms against the walls either side of you. See if you can pull your fingertips back towards your ears. So your pinky finger should be facing the floor, your thumb should be facing the ceiling. If you're not sure, just have a quick glance to camera to see the position of my palms. And then we can really push out here. Push, push, push. Imagine you are a superhero trying to stop the collision of 2 trains. Give it all of your efforts and then let go. For our second one of these, we're going to pull those shoulders down, tucking your shoulder blades into your back pockets. And then again, pull those fingernails back towards your ears, push the palms away, push the heels of your hands away, and see if you can straighten those fingers out. Big breath in. And then exhale to release, relax those shoulders. So hopefully we start to feel a little bit more space in the shoulder, elbow, wrist, and finger joints. We're going to go back to that first arm, lifting it up above the shoulder again. And you can flex the wrist again, so palm facing the ceiling, but just do that in a much more relaxed way this time, so it doesn't feel like an intense stretch. And now we're going to start to turn the arm or twist the arm from side to side. So if you imagine you're waving at the ceiling, it's probably the easiest way, or imagine you're cleaning the ceiling, if you like. So your fingertips point to the left and then they point to the right, alternating. I want you to have a look at your arm and have a look at which parts of your arm are moving. So you're probably doing some combination of twisting the forearm and turning the upper arm. And what we're going to do is try to just move from the upper arm to move from the shoulder. So instead of looking at where your hand is going, look at your elbow and look at the inside of your elbow. So I'll call that your elbow crease or your elbow pit as we go through the class. And see if you can get that elbow pit to turn in and out. So you start to really feel that effort coming from the shoulder joint. And you can really push to the end range of each of those twists. Try slowing it down a bit, really feeling that deep work in the shoulder socket. Notice as well that when you turn your elbow pit to face you, to face your face, it becomes easier to pull that shoulder down away from your ear. So that is the position that we're going to favor throughout most of the class. Okay, rest that arm back down. Try the other side, lifting the arm up. And just a few easy rotations, just noticing what automatically happens for you. So if your shoulders are quite stiff, you'll probably move mostly from the forearm, from the elbow. If your shoulders are very mobile, you might already be doing lots of movement from your shoulder. But it's a case of slowing that down and really finding the work. Begin to move from the shoulder joint, observing your elbow to see the upper arm is moving, not just the wrist and forearm. And feeling that kind of winding down feeling in the shoulder socket. Shoulder blade comes down as you turn the fingertips out. Okay, and relax that arm down. So we'll come back to those movements a little bit later when we're working the shoulders a little bit more. For now, we're going to do another stretch. So turn onto your side. I'm going to do this with my back to you, just in case you need a visual reference on what to do, because you're going to have your hand behind your back. So lying on your side, you can bend your knees, you can rest your head on your arm, and then take the back of your hand onto your back. So top arm, back of your hand comes onto your back. And that's going to obviously mean you have to bend the elbow. And I want you to think about the position of your rib cage as well. So try to push the back of your rib cage into the back of your hand. It might feel like you're curling or hunching a little bit, and that's okay. You can do that just to really make sure we're not kind of shifting the rib cage forward. Then you're going to try to just inch your thumb up towards the top of your back, up towards your head, and then back down again. And then repeat, so that you're kind of waving behind your back, I guess, or you can think of it as increasing the bend in your elbow and then opening it back out again. And for this, stay as high up your back with your hand as you can. And see if you can challenge yourself, see how high you can get that thumb to reach. Just finding that stretch in the shoulder. And actually, you know, you are working the muscles of the shoulder here in a very different way to how you routinely use them. Pause with your hand, back of your hand on the back of your body, and then see if you could maybe flip that hand over so your thumb stays in place and you're trying to turn your palm towards your back. Now you might manage that, or you might manage some of the way, or you might be thinking, no, that is not possible. And if you're in that last category, try taking your hand further down your back, and you'll probably find it becomes a little bit easier. Okay, relax that arm. Give the shoulder a little roll just before we switch over. And then when you're ready, change to the other side. So again, I'll keep my back to you in case you do need that visual reference. Lying on your side with both knees bent and your back of your hand on the back of your body. Okay, so again, try that wave. Try inching your thumb up towards the back of your head and then down your back. And with lots of these shoulder stretches and exercises, you are likely to feel a difference between your left and right side. So just look out for that as we go through the class. You probably find your dominant side is a little bit tighter. All right, so we're inching that thumb as high up as possible. And then maybe trying that little flip over, palm onto your back. Is it possible? And if not, go lower. And it should become easier. All right. And relax that arm, relax your shoulder. Okay, let's try to get a little bit of work now then. So we're going to turn to all fours. Wrists below your shoulders, knees below your hips. And now just something to kind of bear in mind when we're doing our all fours work today. Your shoulders are probably wider than your hips. So your hands should be wider than your knees, just a tiny bit. Have a little look and see if that's the case. Spread your fingers out. Relax your neck. See if you can really relax it. See if you can let your head hang down. And then relax your upper back. So let your chest kind of sink towards the mat and let your shoulder blades slump in towards each other. So your shoulder blades kind of rest against each other on your back. And then you're going to push the mat away, opening those shoulder blades and making sure you're not shrugging. Pull the shoulder blades away from your head. And then we'll repeat that. Let your shoulder blades squeeze together, dropping the chest, and then opening those shoulders out. So most of you will recognize this as your rhomboid push-ups. You've got your rhomboid muscles between the shoulder blades that we're working with here. If you haven't done this exercise before, see if you can imagine your shoulder blades like sliding doors on your back, opening and closing. So it's not a cat stretch, it's a much smaller movement and kind of isolated to the upper back. And there's no rush with these moves. You want to really feel the shoulders moving, and we also want to be able to keep checking that you're relaxing your neck, you're pulling your shoulders away from your ears. Every time I say that, there's always somebody whose shoulders have crept up. Usually it's me. All right, and then let's take it a little bit further. So open those shoulder blades apart, pushing the mat away, stretching your upper back, and then go a little bit further by rounding the rib cage, lifting the back of your rib cage up towards the ceiling. Take a deep breath into the back of the ribs. And then exhale, let the ribs drop down, let your shoulder blades slump together again. Let's do that 2 more times. Opening the shoulder blades, lifting the back of the rib cage up. Imagine the spaces between your ribs opening out. Breathe into them. And then release. One more time. Pushing the mat away. Open those shoulder blades. Lift the ribs. All right, and then as you release, just make sure those shoulders are away from your ears. Okay, let's come off our wrists a little bit. So you're going to just lower yourself down to lie on your front. You can lengthen your legs out behind you, rest your forehead down on the mat. And we want to make sure that we're going to keep looking directly down towards the mat today. So if your nose is getting squashed and you're uncomfortable, roll up the end of your mat or use your cushion just to prop up your forehead so that you can keep looking directly down. We're going to work on the neck a little bit. So if you do suffer from shoulder tension, you'll be more than aware that your neck can take on that tension as well. We'll see if we can strengthen some of the muscles on the back of the neck. Take your hands onto the back of your head, interlace your fingers. And then you're going to lift your elbows just a little bit. And see if you can feel a kind of triangle shape from elbow to elbow and then down to your shoulder blades. Squeeze those shoulder blades down your back. Now see if you can start to push the back of your head into your hands. And don't worry about lifting for now, just try pushing the head into the hands. You're looking down, your chin is tucking towards your throat. And then rest and repeat. Keeping the elbows lifted, pushing the head into your hands, tucking the chin. And you may get a little lift, your head may lift off the mat, but I want you to make sure it's only your head that lifts and not your chest. So different from the exercise that we would normally do, just the head. And that is so that you can start to feel, hopefully you will feel the muscles on the back of your neck working, and they can feel like they're working quite hard because we're used to peering forward. We're used to looking forward at our screens or looking down at our screens. And this movement is the exact opposite of that. So try a couple more. Feel free to take rest if it feels like too much. Okay, and then rest back down. You're going to come back up to all fours again. So plant your palms down. Think about how you use your shoulders as you come back up to your all fours position. And again, get your wrists under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. And first of all here, I just want you to relax your lower body. So let your belly feel heavy, let your hip crests feel heavy, and allow the pelvis just to relax a little bit. So your hip crest should point to the mat and your tailbone should point towards the ceiling. And then we can spread the fingers, pushing into the palms and into the pads of the fingers. And I want you to start to push as hard as you can into your right hand. And then as you do that, the left side of your rib cage is going to start to lift, and therefore your left shoulder and therefore your left hand will lift off the mat. Then you can lift that hand all the way up to the ceiling, turn to look at your left hand, pushing with the right hand and opening up that nice wide wingspan from arm to arm. Inhale here, and then exhale, come back down to face the mat. Pressing into the left hand. Start to let the right side of your upper body rise up, and then lift the arm and look at the hand. And imagine you're trying to turn your whole rib cage onto its side. Inhaling here, and then coming back down. Okay, let's go again. So starting to press into the right hand, lifting the left side of the upper body, and then just let that arm float up, reaching up. Think about your hips this time. Can you relax the belly and feel that nice twist in your middle? And then bring that hand back down. Other side, push into the left, lifting the right, pressing down with the left hand, reaching up with the right fingertips. Relax your belly, relax your hips. And then come back down. One more time, each side. See if you can really open it up here. Lovely. And last one. Perfect. Okay, so rest those hands back down. We'll come off our wrists again for a moment, actually. If you just come down onto your elbows. So you've got elbows under shoulders now. And let's stretch out the arms a little bit. So you're going to keep your right hand where it is. Place your left hand on top of your right hand. And the idea here is that that left hand pins the right hand to the mat. Then walk your knees back a little bit and then take your hips back. Hips go up and back. So bum in the air. And see if you can find a stretch around that right shoulder, right side of your rib cage. You can slightly shift your weight to the right here as well, just to help you feel that stretch. Think of the kind of armpit area opening out. You can let your chest relax, but keep those hips nice and high. Alrighty, and then swapping it over. So place your left elbow down under your left shoulder, right hand on top of the left, pin it down, and then hips up and back. And again, you can tilt your body weight just a little, just to help to emphasize that stretch. All right, and then coming back again. Both elbows under both shoulders. Have a look at your forearms. Make sure that they're parallel to each other. So your elbows are shoulder width apart and your hands are shoulder width apart as well. And then you're going to turn your arms over. So you've got backs of your arms on the mat, backs of your hands on the mat. And see if you can rotate enough to get the thumbnails to touch the mat. Now, if that feels like a strain in your forearms or your wrists, then it's coming from the wrong place. So instead, see if you can turn from the shoulder. Think of getting those elbow pits to face the ceiling. And then you should be able to get a little bit more rotation. Maybe your thumbnails don't get all the way to the mat, but get as close as you can. And shift those hips back. And enjoy that nice external rotation of the shoulders. Or maybe you're not enjoying it, but either way, your shoulders are going to thank you for having the opportunity to do something other than rolling inwards in front of you. So let's open it out. Relax the chest, relax the head. One more breath here. And then you can turn those arms over and you can come back up to all fours again. So we're going to go to our tricep work now. Nobody's favorite exercise, but so important when we're considering the arms and shoulders. Just spread your fingers out, kind of glue your hands to the mat, and then try those arm rotations that we did at the very beginning of the class. So without moving your hands, you should be able to turn your arms in your shoulder sockets, and you can look at your elbows and see them moving. So we're going to pause at the point where your elbow pits, elbow creases face forward in the same direction as your fingers. And then you're going to start to bend your elbows. Take it slow, keep your neck relaxed, and see if you could maybe get all the way down to rest your forearms on the mat. However far you get, you then spread your weight into your palms and your fingers, push into them to straighten the arms back up, making sure that as you come back up, those elbow creases are still pointing forwards. And then repeat. So you'll recognize your tricep dips, another one that we do fairly often, but we're just going to keep them slow today and as big as possible. If you can go all the way down and all the way back up again, then do so. But as always, we've got compensations to look out for. So try to make sure your bum is not going backwards. Keep your hips above your knees. If your hips are going back beyond your knees, then your body is trying to take weight out of those shoulders. And that defeats the purpose of what we're doing here. So keep those elbows tucked in. Forearms should come down parallel. And let's check again, are those shoulders shrugging? There are a few yeses there. All right, last one, wherever you're up to, pause on all fours. And we've got one more all fours exercise to try. So if you need to take a moment to just sit back on your heels and release your wrists, if you want to do a few circles or backs of the hands together, feel free to do that. I'll start describing the next exercise and you just join in whenever you're ready. So we're going to come back to all fours again. And we're going to try kind of a crawling movement. So if you imagine your arms and legs as all legs. Imagine you're a little bear and we're going to lift one at a time. So let's start with the right arm, lifting the right side of your rib cage, lifting the right shoulder so the right hand comes off the mat. And then just looking at the other legs, arm and legs, and making sure they haven't moved. Placing the right hand down, try the left side, lifting the left side of your rib cage up so that the left hand comes off the mat. And let's try just the arms to begin with. Try walking from one hand to the other. Now the arm stays straight here. So it's not a case of bending your elbow to tuck your arm out of the way. And it's not a case of moving the arm out to the side or out in front of you. So what actually happens is a rib cage rotation. You should feel one side of the rib cage lifting and then the other. And as you do this, just have a look back at those thighs and make sure they're staying vertical. So you're not swaying, you're not leaning side to side here. And generally that's kind of easy enough to achieve with the arms. Well, what about if we start to move the legs instead? So both hands back down. Try lifting the back of your right hip so that your right knee lifts. And then just pause and check. Have you leaned to the left? Can you bring that left hip in above your left knee? And then rest the right knee down. Alternate sides, stepping from one knee to the other. Not tucking your knee underneath you, not straightening the leg out behind you, not cocking the leg out to the side, but just lifting the back of the pelvis straight up. And see if you can keep the leg that remains on the mat vertical. Okay, pause for a moment, relax your spine, relax your belly, let your tailbone release. We're going to try opposite arm and leg. So right arm, left knee, lift, and have a look at your right knee and see if you're able to keep that right thigh vertical. Swap it over and see if you can keep your left thigh vertical. Keep it nice and slow. You're imagining you're a bear that has just come out of hibernation, plodding along. And this is a little bit of shoulder work, but it's a little bit of core work as well. You should feel your abs starting to support you here. The less your abs are doing, the more your shoulders have to do. So maybe if you're starting to feel the strain on the shoulders, those abs kick in a little bit more. Good. Try not to kick that leg back behind you. Try to hitch the hip straight up. Okay, and then take a rest. All right, good news. We're coming down off the wrists and shoulders, and you're going to lie yourself all the way down on the mat. Can you find space this time to have your arms extended out in front of you? So arms either side of your head and straight out. Now we're going to keep the head facing down. Again, we're going to keep the eyes to the mat, nose pointing to the mat. And we're sticking with our theme, we're sticking with the shoulders. So pull those shoulders down away from your ears, first of all. And that should kind of drag your arms in, kind of retract the arms towards you a little bit. So make sure you're imagining placing your shoulder blades in the back pockets of your jeans. And then, so you're simply going to lift your right arm off the floor. Nothing else moves. Just that right arm lifts off the floor. And then place it back down. And then try the left arm, lifting it off the floor. And place it back down. And then alternate sides. Your head stays still. Your rib cage stays still. If you find your rib cage is rocking from side to side, then once again, it's your body trying to avoid using your shoulder. So see if you can keep it steady and use the muscles on the back of your shoulder to lift the weight of your arm. Couple more of these. If you want a little bit more of a challenge, you could try starting with both arms hovering and lifting a little bit higher from there. Check on the shoulders, make sure they haven't shrugged. It's another way of avoiding that shoulder work. All right, and relax the arms back down. Feel free to give them a little wiggle. Second little challenge for the back of the shoulders. You're going to lift your right arm back up again and keep it lifted. And then I want you to see if you can bend at your elbow and give yourself a little pat on the back.
And then straighten that arm back out. And try that 3 more times, bending at the elbow, keeping that elbow lifted nice and high, tapping the top of your back, and then lengthening back out. 2 more. Don't worry if you're not reaching your back. Maybe you tap the back of your head. Do whatever you can. And then lengthen that arm and relax it down. Left side, lift the arm off the floor. And then try and move with control, just bending at the elbow, tapping the top of your back, and extending. 3 more times. Keeping those elbows off the floor. Last one. Okay, and then relax the arm. And give those shoulders a little roll, a little wiggle, and let go of that work. All right, you're then going to come back to, just come briefly back up to all fours and turn onto your side from there. So tip your bum over onto one side, and you're going to support yourself with one hand and one arm. So we're going to do some hip lifts, which I think we did in class last week for those of you who joined me, but we've got a slightly different focus today. So it's going to be the shoulder, no big surprise there. We're going to keep thinking about keeping the shoulder away from the ear. And we're also going to think about what your elbow gets up to. So quite often in this exercise, our elbows tend to lock, and that's to avoid using the muscle and just try and stabilize the joint instead. So I want you to just very, very slightly bend your elbow, keeping that shoulder down, and that's going to help you to use the muscles of your arm instead of using the joint, instead of using the trapezius up here. So let's just try lifting and lowering a few times. See if you can get your hips away from the mat and then back down again. You can put your hand on your hip or wherever you want to put it. And you can kind of follow your own rhythm here, up and down. You can take breaks, but I want you to focus on keeping that shoulder away from your ear, keeping the elbow bent just a tiny, tiny bit. And see if you can feel that the arm will be working more than usual, but hopefully we're avoiding that horrible tension between the neck and shoulder. Maybe you want to try lifting the top leg as well. So you could lift your hips and then lift your knee. It's optional. We'll do 2 more of whichever version you're doing. All right, and then relax it back down. It wouldn't be a shoulder class if we didn't get a bit of work for the shoulder. So let's swap it over. Same thing on the other side. So get yourself in position first of all. Both knees are bent. Pull the shoulder down. Check on your elbow. Just soften that elbow joint. And then when you're ready, you're going up and down. And this is one of those movements which actually is quite important when you need to get yourself up off the ground. So there's lots of scenarios in which you need to be able to support your body weight with your arm. And it's worth being ready for those situations. Try lifting your hips and maybe lifting your leg as well. And we'll do our final 2. And final 1, whichever version you are doing. Okay. Well done. Okay, we're going back to all fours again. This one you can do on straight arms, or if you're feeling a little bit tired in the wrists, you can do this on your elbows instead. We'll just get a nice little stretch first of all. So either on elbows or on hands. Relax your neck, open your shoulder blades, lift the back of your rib cage up, and then just take your hips backwards. And see if you can find loads of space in your upper back. You'll take your weight away from your wrists if you're on your hands, away from your elbows if you're on your elbows. Maybe feeling that little bit of opening out around the armpits. Take a couple of deep breaths here and use your inhales to really find that spaciousness in the back, expanding the spaces between your ribs and between your shoulder blades. One more breath, see if you can relax your neck a little bit more. Okay, and then come forward, come back up. If you're on your elbows, come back up onto your hands and line yourself up again. Wrists over, wrists under shoulders, knees under hips. So last little bit of strength work here. Bear with me. Spread your fingers out and open those shoulder blades up again. So nice and strong in the upper back. See if you can have those elbow creases pointing forwards. Tuck your toes under and then lift your knees off the mat with control, just a tiny, tiny lift. Rest those knees back down and check, are your shoulder blades still opened? Are your elbow creases still facing forward? This time, let's monitor that as we lift, keeping those shoulder blades away from each other, keeping those elbows in place, and then lower. One more time. Shoulder blades open, upper back nice and strong. Lift the knees. And then lower the knees back down. Great. And you can untuck your toes and you can sit back and give those wrists a nice little circle around. And good news is if your wrists are tight and feel uncomfortable, working on your shoulder strength and mobility is going to do wonders for that. It's all worth it, I promise. Now we're going to use our cushion. So whatever you have to prop up your upper body, grab that now. Pop it at the top of your mat, and then you're going to lie yourself down with your head and shoulders propped up. So you might even want to use two cushions if you want to create a bit of a wedge. The reason that we're using the cushion is to allow the rib cage to slope down towards the mat. So your shoulders must be raised in order for that to happen, not just head on the cushion, but shoulders as well. And if you just place your hands on the bottom of your rib cage and use each exhale to allow the ribs to sink into the belly. See if you can just take a moment to relax and just build a little bit of awareness of that relationship between your rib cage and your abdomen. We're going to aim to have the ribs flush with the belly. So notice if you're somebody whose ribs tend to stick out a little bit, let go of tension on your back. Let the mid-back sink towards the mat. And the ribs should then come down and rest down into the belly, into the mat. Let's explore some of the muscles that are going to help us with that. So if you now take your fingertips to right onto the bottom of the rib cage, and you're always going to dig in slightly as though you're trying to grab the bottom of your rib cage. Your belly should be nice and soft here to be able to just push the fingers gently in. And then try lifting your head, just a little lift with the head. And you should hopefully feel something happens. Your abs switch on and kind of push your fingers away. Relax your head back down, let the belly soften. And try that a few times just to familiarize yourself with these muscles that we're going to use again in a moment. One more time. Okay, so we know they're there, we know they work. Hopefully that was your finding from that. You're going to interlace your fingers. You're going to take them to the back of your head I'm just going to do some simple chest lifts from here. Start by lifting your head just a tiny bit off the cushion, and then rest your head into your hands so the neck is relaxed. Now see if you can keep your shoulders relaxed, and then see if you can use those muscles at the bottom of your rib cage, top of your belly, to pull the ribs down into the belly as much as you can, and your shoulders should lift a tiny bit. And then you relax the shoulders back down, and you relax the head back down. And we'll repeat that, lifting the head first, and then pulling the bottom of the rib cage down into the belly. And then relaxing back down. So this is just a sit-up, but we're just thinking about it in a slightly different way to usual. Really thinking about which muscles you're using, should be your abs, and which muscles you're not using. So unlike everything else in the class today, this exercise is about not using your shoulders. Don't shrug them, don't reach the elbows forward, keep the upper body relaxed, and let your abs lift the entire weight of your rib cage, shoulders, arms, and head all together, all as one. A couple more here. Try exhaling as you lift. That should help you out a little bit. Okay, and then take a rest back down. All right, so just bearing in mind that we've got that control of the rib cage. We're using the cushion to let the ribs slope down. But if you still start to feel the ribs lifting and popping out, we can use that little bit of abdominal work just to pull the rib cage into the belly. Take your arms out to the sides. If you're a bit short of space, you can bend your elbows for this, or you can have your arms straight if you've got the room. You're going to have your palms facing the ceiling. And we're going to try and keep our thumbnails in contact with the floor. So we're going to do floor angels, like snow angels, but without the snow. Start to slide your thumbs up towards the top of the mat. So you're drawing a little circle. But as your hands come up, see if you can pay attention to the ribs, sinking those ribs down into your belly, relaxing your mid-back into the mat. And then drawing those arms back down when you're ready. I'm going to try this a few times. So moving relatively slowly up and down. And just noticing what happens. So are your shoulders starting to shrug? Could you try not shrugging them? Are your ribs starting to lift? Is your back starting to arch? Let the back relax. Let the ribs slope down. And that might mean that your arms don't go as far as you might want them to, but I'm going to try and just accept that range of movement, maybe slightly pushing against that boundary. It's something that should increase gradually with time. We're not going to do all of that work today. And if you do have your elbows bent, just make sure you're still moving from the shoulder, so you're not just windscreen wipering your forearms. Okay, next time your arms come down, you can bring them all the way down by your sides and relax the shoulders. We'll do one more thing with our cushion in place. Let's just interlace the fingers and then turn your palms to face the ceiling. So arms straight, perhaps just squeezing those elbows towards each other a little bit. Pull the shoulder blades away from your ears and try rolling your thumbs towards the ceiling. So your palms are really trying to kind of shine up towards the ceiling here. Check again on that rib cage, sink the ribs down, and then start to take your hands back overhead as though your hands are sinking to the bottom of a lake. So slowly. And just continuing to monitor those two things. The shoulders don't shrug and the ribs don't flare.
And that means that it's very unlikely that you're going to get your hands all the way to the floor. You'll probably reach a kind of natural stopping point. I want you just to hang out there, take a few breaths. See if you can use your exhales to pull the ribs down. Maybe feel that little bit of extra opening out around the chest and the armpits, the shoulders. Okay, and you're going to gently release your fingers and let your arms come back down. Take your cushion out from behind you, so you can just rest down onto the floor now. Rest your head down. Let's have those arms slightly wider than your mat, palms facing down this time. And I just want you to try to let your upper body feel quite heavy. So not just the rib cage, but the whole of the upper body just sinking into the mat. Have your knees hips width apart. And we're just going to start to gently sway the knees from side to side. Not too quickly. And you don't have to go too far here. So there's no requirement for your knees to go all the way to the floor. Just see what feels good for you. It should feel easy. Knees should be going the same direction as each other, letting the weight of your lower body tip and letting the pelvis roll from side to side. Now, as you're doing this, just notice, can you keep those shoulders nice and relaxed? You're not moving the shoulders, but you're not bracing with them either. You're just keeping them heavy, using the upper body as kind of an anchor on the mat. A couple more to each side. Maybe those movements start to get a little bit bigger through repetition. All right, and then you're going to bring those knees right back up to the center. Bring your arms back down to your sides. And let's just reassess those things that we checked on at the beginning of the class. So noticing, first of all, where do your shoulders sit height-wise? Are your shoulders rounding forward? Is your chest contracting? Can you let that tension go and let the shoulders melt to the mat? And noticing, are you shrugging? And if you are, can you reach your fingertips towards your heels and pull those shoulders down your back? Then allow the upper body to relax, taking a deep breath in through your nose and a full breath out through your mouth. And that concludes today's class. Thank you very much for joining me.